Hello friends, very good afternoon. Am I audible? Can you please confirm? Dear viewers, is AV good? Is audio good? Is the video good? Mr. Mohan, I can see you're trying to type something. Hello guys. So yeah, I can see the signal. Today MICAT 1 was conducted. So MICAT 1 and MICAT 2, it would be conducted 2 times. Today was the first one, and we're going to do some very detailed analysis of each section, what's a good score, how they stack up against last year and everything, right? Let's dive right in. So the exam was administered today without many technical issues. No one really complained about any problem. For the most part, it was conducted in TC and CS ION digital zones, the same places that are conducting CAT, SSC, RRB, literally every other major exam in the country today. No problem as far as the testing experience was there. This year, we also have an on-screen calculator and even a scratch pad was provided, right? So the same on-screen calculator that aspirants would have seen in the CAT exam. Now, this is the broad pattern. Now, there is some change here if you compare to the previous years. In the previous year, there were 150 questions in psychometric. This year, they brought it down significantly to just 68 questions. The time sort of remained the same, 68 questions. See, there were 3 parts in the exam, part 1, part 2, part 3. The first part was the psychometric test, 68 questions within 28 minutes. You had to attempt all of them. And do not forget the most important thing, this is an eliminating section. Only once you get a qualifying score in the psychometric test, then they would look at your aptitude part and then your score in the qualifying test, which could be either CAT or XAT. That typically ranges about 80, 85 percentile, 90 percentile in CAT and XAT. You get that kind of a score, then they will consider your aptitude score. If you clear the cutoff here, then your descriptive test will be evaluated. That is the scheme of things, guys, right? So psychometric test, we had 68 questions within 25 minutes. That was the first one. Then came the descriptive test. We'll talk about it in detail once again, great detail, including the images which were shared in the actual exam, right? And then we have the aptitude part, divergent and convergent thinking, which is equivalent to your logical reasoning, 20 questions, verbal ability, reading comprehension, 20 questions, quantitative ability and data interpretation, 20 questions, and finally general awareness or GK, 10 questions. Total of 70 questions here, 72 here, total of 142 questions, 25 minutes, 25 minutes. This section, this entire aptitude section had 80 minutes allocated, right? Now, over to my colleague Lakshmi, the head of our English team, who will take you through the psychometric test.
Thank you, Rahul, and hello, students. So, yes, you have heard the introduction, how MICAT 1 was. No major changes except for the reduction in the number of questions. Yeah, just a second. Okay. In psychometric, no major changes except that the questions in psychometric were brought down by more than half. Okay. Now we talk about the psychometric test. As my colleague Rahul told you, it is an elimination round. Moreover, you are not allowed to leave any question there, as in leaving out even a single question can disqualify or will disqualify you. Okay. Psychometric test, as expected, it had all the questions had 7 choices. So it was a spectrum ranging from strongly disagree to strongly agree. Yeah. And the areas covered were creativity. So as you know, MICA is big on creativity, right? They are best known for their management of communication management course, and they are big on creativity throughout their assessment process. That showed in their psychometric test as well. Expression of creativity was tested. Also, ability to work with divergent teams who are different from you in terms of ability, ideas, etc. So, how to handle conflicts also came within the same area. Then standing up for your convictions, absolutely, that was another area. Your work ethic, your ability to handle failure and also negative feedback, resilience, ability to handle volatility, uncertainty, ambiguity. That's what we mean by dynamic situations. Futuristic thinking as well as imagination. Imagination was also heavily tested. There are no right or wrong answers in this section. What matters is consistency and integrity, because if integrity is not there, then it will show as a lack of consistency. So there are no, you can't really try and give the right answers. You need to try and be yourself. That is the key in psychometric test. Okay, moving on to the most interesting section in MICAT, that is the descriptive test. This is the section that makes the exam unique, as you all know. So we had 4 questions in this section to be answered in 25 minutes. Okay, 3 questions were essay type questions based on the same prompt, and the 4th was the story. Okay, image based story writing. We'll come to that, but before that, the essays. The prompt given was this: employee engagements have transitioned from only a traditional employer-employee relationship to a situationship model. For example, gig workers, freelancers, etc. So now all the 3 questions were based on the same context. The first was present 3 arguments listing the negative outcomes for the statement above. Each of the the first two questions had 10 marks and the third question had 20 marks. So this was to list 3 arguments against this particular situation. Okay. Then the second was present 3 arguments listing the positive outcomes for the statement above. And the third was discuss 3 ways in which this transition would impact society at large. Now, you were not allowed to repeat this. Instructions specifically mentioned that you could not repeat any ideas discussed in the previous 2 questions. Okay, so that was the essay part. The word limit was 300, up to 300 words for each of these. Okay, but then you had 25 minutes for these 3 plus the story. So time management would have been extremely crucial. Okay, yeah. And this was the story. These were the images. So the images are an approximation of the actual images given that were given in the exam. Okay, a herd or group of animals which looked like donkeys. Then there was a bistro kind of cafe, a car collision, and this image of some food item with devil horns. Now, you had to select the order of these images. Okay, that the order of the images as they would appear in your story. You had to indicate the order, and then you had to write a story of not more than 300 words. Marks were 30 marks for this. So the descriptive section was exactly the same as in the previous year. So those who had taken our mocks or those who had practiced descriptive writing would not have found it difficult. But for others, if you were doing this for the first time, sitting and typing it out could have been a challenge within 25 minutes. So again, time management was very critical here. Okay. Now, moving on, the third section was the aptitude section. So the aptitude section had 3 subsections each, that is 4 subsections. GK was separate. Okay, so 3 subsections with 20 questions each, and then there was GK with 10 questions. Okay, so yeah, the first subsection we're going to talk about is verbal ability. Verbal ability, there were 20 questions. Okay, 10 questions were reading comprehension based, and then I'll come back to RC shortly. Then the other questions were fill in the blanks and CAT type VA questions. Okay, para formation para jumble, then para completion where the last sentence was missing, para summary, odd man out, and 2 grammar based questions, that is sentence correction kind of questions. Now, overall, the difficulty level was slightly on the higher side. Over the years, the difficulty level of the verbal ability section varies. Sometimes you have very, very easy reading comprehension questions, very easy vocabulary. This year, it was definitely not very easy. Okay, let us look at the reading comprehension passages. There were 3 passages of varying lengths. The first passage on the ascendancy of cafes, that is emergence of cafe as a trend. Okay, the passage per se, the idea was not very complex, but it had high level vocabulary was not very easy. The passage was lengthy, 540 words, that is slightly longer than your typical CAT passages, slightly. And the questions were also difficult. At least there were 5 questions. So at least 3 of these questions required heavy inferences. Vocabulary based questions also were contextual, and the options given as one word substitutes in the vocabulary based questions based on RC were also really difficult. The words were difficult. Okay. That one set was tough, but the other 2 sets were sort of moderate. The second one was embryonic, the little typo there, embryonic diapause. This that is a particular phenomenon seen in kangaroos and other animals. Okay, that was explained. It's a science-based passage, but very, very readable, very simple passage. The length also was sort of moderate. Okay, and the questions, there were 3 questions based on this passage. One question probably was on the summary of the passage. It was slightly tricky in terms of options, but otherwise the questions were okay. The third one was a very short passage on the evolution of knowledge as a concept from an epistemology perspective to a very commercial perspective that is based on metrics and stuff. Very readable passage. And the questions, again, there were 2 questions, I think. 5 plus 3 plus 2, correct. 2 questions. One was a little tricky, the other was easy. That was RC. So overall, I would say the RC section was moderate in terms of difficulty. Okay, then you had fill in the blanks. Fill in the blanks had vocabulary as well as grammar. There was one FIB which was on grammar, that is the right tense you had to choose. The other FIBs, one had a combination of vocabulary and grammar, and 2 were exclusively vocabulary based, high level vocabulary, guys. But there were hardly any words that we had not taught in our course. Okay, seriously, hardly, maybe 1 or 2 here and there. That is FIB. Then you had para formation. All these CAT type VA questions were actually very easy. Odd man out also was of a moderate difficulty level. Para summary, the summary options were sort of lengthy, about 60 words or so per option, but very easily eliminable options. So I would say this para based part was quite easy, and grammar, sentence correction kind of questions were also on the easier side. Okay. That is why overall the difficulty level was moderate. But if you look at the difficult RC and the vocabulary questions, that's why we have called it moderate to difficult. Yes, as I explained, one was lengthy, one RC was lengthy, and yes, all these I've already mentioned. So, to wrap up this section, question selection would have been, of course, that's the case in any section with negative marks. Some of these non-MCQs did not have negative marking also. So question selection would have been extremely crucial here, and also a good command over vocabulary. These were the game changers in the verbal ability section. Okay. Back again to Rahul to take over from me.
Thank you, Lakshmi. Thank you for all those excellent insights. You've taken us into a great deal of depth. So coming back to the divergent and convergent thinking, guys, There were 20 questions here. We know 20 in verbal, 20 in this section, 20 in quant DI, and 10 in GK, right? Here, the 20 questions were spread across coding and decoding. There were sentences based coding, right? If India met Pakistan is coded as AG, PG, AG, kind of a thing. There was one question here. And there were 3 word association questions. By now, everyone is very familiar with these questions, which keep coming in the MICAT, right? You have column A and column B. You have some words in column A. You have to identify which word in column B can be associated with all the words in column A. That's word association. There were 3 questions. There was one easy question in blood relations, which had some symbols and notations. This means he is the nephew. This means he is the father. This means he is the sister, kind of a thing, right? And then you had one short puzzle, one 2-line puzzle. Now that was the easier one. The interesting thing is we've seen some very interesting puzzles this year. This was a straightforward puzzle, this first one. But the remaining puzzles, these were puzzles with a data sufficiency format. What it means is a part of a puzzle is given and the question is asking, which of the following additional pieces of information do you need to actually answer this question? So statement 1 alone is enough, statement 2 alone is enough, both are needed, and even both together can't answer the question. That is puzzles with DS format, data sufficiency format. And then there were more puzzles with a twist. These puzzles, once again, partial puzzle was given, all right? Which of the following is necessarily true for this outcome to follow, kind of a thing. For example, there were 2 puzzles on circular arrangement, right? 5 people sitting around a circle, 6 people sitting around a circle, and partial information was given. And then the question was, which of the following has to be true for A to be an immediate neighbor of B, kind of a thing. So these puzzles are definitely playing around with something. Now, be smart about it. Solving a puzzle itself is a big deal, and you want to solve a puzzle with partial information and then go through each option and see, can this help me answer or not? Can this help me answer or not? Remember, your goal, your target is to get about 20, 25, 30 marks in the MICAT, right? And having cleared the psychometric test and gotten enough marks in the qualifying exam, which is CAT or XAT, maximizing the score is key here. It's not about ego. It's not about struggling with each puzzle and then wondering why you're unable to solve it. At one glance, if it looks like it takes time, drop it. This is what we keep drilling in your minds again and again, right? So I think the first puzzle was doable, but the other 2 puzzles were definitely tricky. They were time taking. I mean, given 10 minutes, I could solve it. But why would I want to spend time on it when there are more low-hanging fruits for me, right? So there was non-verbal reasoning. There was one mirror image and one folding. Both were very easy. That's what we thought. Statements and reasoning. There was one question which was decent, not difficult. There were statements and conclusions, 3 questions on that, and that could have been tricky for a lot of people. But then again, we trained you all for critical reasoning, for NMAT, and so many exams. For those who took this part seriously, this shouldn't have posed much of a problem, right? One very easy question was there from directions, and maybe not very easy, but it was doable, definitely. He starts and goes north and then goes south and then goes certain distance southeast. What is the final distance, kind of a question was there. One series question was there, about 6-7 terms were given and the odd one out had to be selected. That was doable. And then the standard questions that we've come to expect from MICAT every year, deductions. You know, the conclusions were given, conclusion 1 and conclusion 2 were given. Which of the following statements have to be true so that the conclusions can follow? 2 questions of this genre came. Now, overall, what do you look at this and say, what do you think the section felt like? There were enough avenues to score if you picked your battles wisely. That's something this theme is going to repeat even in the next section, the quant DI section. You choose your battles wisely. Time is currency in the exam. So choose your battles wisely and spend your time wisely. You will end up maximizing your score, right? Moving on to the next part, quantitative ability and data interpretation. This is one section where we can decidedly say is easier than last year. It was lengthy. Yes, a lot of people did feel it was lengthy. And the flavor was pretty close to CAT. This was unmissable. Many students felt this feels like CAT. This is feeling more and more like CAT now. Last year, a lot of test takers had the complaint that it was a very difficult quant paper. I mean, what's the point of giving such a difficult quant paper to MBA aspirants, especially someone who's trying to get into advertising and mass communication? This year, such a complaint, I doubt will actually come up now, right? The level of questions, arithmetic is king. For every MBA entrance exam, we say the same thing. Arithmetic is king. 8 questions out of 20, that's 40% from arithmetic alone. The usual suspects, time and work, averages, mixtures, allegations, percentages, profit and loss. 8 questions, that's huge. Even if you remember 8th class, 9th class, 10th class, high school math, without having ever studied math in your 11th or 12th class, you could still have cracked these 8 questions. What's your excuse for not solving them? Tell me. I am a non-engineer, I'm not good at math is not good enough an excuse anymore when every MBA entrance exam is giving you 30 to 40% weightage to arithmetic, right? Which is common sense math. That's what we call it. Algebra, surprisingly, nowadays we see in CAT and other exams, algebra is also taking the second place. But here we saw only one question from algebra. There was one progressions question, which was very difficult, best left. In geometry, there were 2 questions on quadrilaterals. One was doable, easy. One was pretty tough. Again, in modern maths, there were 2 questions from probability. Now, MICAT has this good relationship with probability that every year we find probability and permutations and combinations questions. Both of these questions were very easy, very straightforward. One of them was as easy as there were 25 coins in a bag. If one of them is randomly picked, find the probability that is divisible by 3 or 5. That simple, that straightforward, right? There was one question from Venn diagrams though, which was very difficult. And there were 2 sets from data interpretation. One was a 4-question set, the other was a 2-question set. The 4-question set involved a pie chart and a bar. At least 2-3 questions were doable. One question was very easy, one question was moderate, 2 were tricky, one of them being pretty difficult. But in this, this 2-question set involving table, both the questions were very easy. There was a table, you had numbers, you just had to add and find percentage increment sort of a thing. Overall, this is my summary. It was easier than last year, but lengthy, right? More questions were doable significantly. Most students will feel that the cutoffs in the MICAT this year will rise because of this one section alone, right? More questions were doable and the flavor was close to CAT. And if questions were chosen correctly, there was a good chance of increasing your score in this section. See, about 5-6 marks in convergent, divergent, about 7-8 marks here, and a few quick marks in verbal, followed by GK, and you'll be sitting on a very, very comfortable score. Keep that in mind, guys, right? And now, coming to general awareness, this section had 10 questions, right? 20, 20, 20. This section had only 10 questions. Now, those 10 questions were spread across business GK. Some questions were asked on logos, brand ambassadors, mottos, corporate company mottos, and then acquisitions. One question came on acquisition. HUL acquired so-and-so, so-and-so. Match the following kind of a thing. There were 4 options in column A and 4 options in column B. You had to identify which parent company acquired which company, right? And then there was one question with sports persons, identifying the sports person and the sport they play. One question asked who was the winner of the 71st National Film Festival, Film Awards, and which of the following is not true. Now, this would have been definitely tricky. This was something you wouldn't want to waste your time in. See, 4 to 5 sentences are given, and the question was asking which of the following is not true. A and B are not true. A and C are not true. A, B, C are not true. D, E, F are not true. You don't want to get caught in that trap, right? Especially considering, remember, every question in the aptitude section has a marking scheme of +1 and -0.25. Now, one very important thing we forgot discussing, in the quant and DI section, for the first time, theta questions or type in the answer questions have surfaced. 3 questions. In quant and DI, we've had 3 questions where you had to type in the answer. Now, that's another reason why test takers would have felt the flavor is very close to CAT, because in CAT also, in the quant section as well as LRDI section, we have fill in the blank questions, right? So this happened for the first this year. It didn't happen last year, right? Now, GK was the fastest way to rack up some marks. Now, if you were preparing, if you were following our MBA Education and Careers magazines, attending our GK classes, you would have realized 7 to 8 of these 10 questions were doable in like 2-3 minutes, like literally no time spent, but 7 to 8 marks in your kitty, right? So that's the great use of general awareness, right? And lastly, the most important question, the $1 million question that must be on everyone's mind. What can be considered to be a good score? Now, every year, you know how it works. The psychometric test is an evaluation trick. You have to clear it, and then you clear the other main exam, either CAT or XAT, and then your aptitude score is checked. If you clear the cutoff, your descriptive answers are then evaluated, right? So what's a good score? We think this year's scores are definitely bound to go higher. I mean, 25 to 30 is a pretty good score, and you'll be in a comfortable position to get an interview call, provided you satisfy all the other criteria. It could go even slightly higher if people have taken it more seriously, right? Now, we leave you here. MICAT 2 is still open. Many of you will also be reappearing for MICAT 2 to improve your chances, because the better of the 2 scores is considered. And to all those who are still appearing for SNAP, NMAT, and ZAP, all the best, guys. It takes a lot of effort to bring so many insights to you. So please like, share, and comment, and share this with your friends also on their MBA journey. See you again in the next video. And that's it. No, you didn't end. End.